Hello everyone, this is Steven from the Even Steven channel, and today we're taking a look at a lock. Take a look at a lock. Oh, you know what? I got it. This is the big G, Glock. Take a look at the Glock. Glock Model 19 Generation 5 MOS. Quite a mouthful there. So let's get started. Let's open the box up. Now I recently took this gun to a class where I put about 400 rounds to this gun. And it did pretty well. So what do we have when we open up the box? We have the firearm. We'll just make sure it's unloaded, which it is. We have, comes with I think 3 magazines total. The magazine loader, which is actually pretty useful to help getting cartridges in. Those inside. Have the back straps. I believe I have the medium one without the kind of beaver tail extension on it. It'll come with 4. I guess without any kind of back strap is considered small. Then you have medium, large, and then medium, large with the beaver tail. This is a little tool, helps you punch out the pin, which we'll get to later. There's a little bit of literature in here. There is this, I guess this is more of a kind of a pull-through rod, but the idea is to attach the nylon brush and to brush out the barrel, which is a nice touch. Now, I couldn't fit it all in the box. I don't know how it got in the first place, but there is a gun lock, which is not specifically labeled for Glock. And since this is the MOS version, we have the optics plates. Now, if you wanted an in-depth discussion on these optics plates and how red dots fit on this gun, I apologize, I'm really not up for that. Sorry. So now that we got all the contents, which somehow all fit in this box, get that out of the way, let's talk about the Glock Model 19 Gen 5 MOS. What does all that mean? Well, Glock, the manufacturer. Model 19, that's their designation for their 9mm mid-sized gun. I wouldn't call it compact, I'd call it mid-sized gun. Generation 5, meaning that is this the 5th major iteration of it, made in Austria, 9x19, 9mm. And although it doesn't say it, this is the MOS version. So all Glock Model 19s are double stacked, striker fired 9mm semi-automatic handguns. Now I bought this gun when the Gen 5s kind of first came out. I found it very interesting. Apologize. I find it very interesting when the Gen 5s first came out. They came out with a couple of weird features that this gun doesn't have. When the Gen 5 guns first came out, the frame was not rounded to match the slide. They rounded off the slide, but not the frame. So this was more squared off and didn't match. I thought that was strange. Did not have front serrations there. It had that strange half moon cutout that they thought would be good for pulling out magazines, which you could still do with this. Sorry, the camera. So I didn't care for all that. It seemed like all the Gen 5 features, I'm coming from the Generation 3. I had a Glock Generation 3, saw the Gen 5s, I kind of liked them. But I saw the standard Generation 5 Glocks had some strange features. But for whatever reason, the MOS version didn't. It had the rounded off frame, it had the front slide serrations, it didn't have that half moon cutout. And when you know it, going forward, and I don't know exactly when Glock did this, Glock basically adopted all the MOS features onto their standard guns, and I think they're referred to as the FS, the front sight version, front serration version. So basically today you can basically get this exact same model without the MOS. The MOS modular optical system setup. But when I bought this gun, and the Generation 5s were still relatively new, I thought this was the best option. So let's go through the features, bottom to top. We'll start with the magazines. all previous generation of Glock magazines will fit in the Gen 5s, assuming you don't assuming you don't want the left-handed functionality. So even the magazines themselves get a couple of updates. They added the orange magazine follower. All right. They extended out the base plate here to help with the pulling, although that didn't go anywhere. You'd probably better use the Generation 4 magazines, but I think the idea of pulling out magazines, of having magazines that are really stuck in the gun, is really an oversold feature. And again, starting with the Generation 4s, they now have cuts on both sides of the magazine, so you can switch that from left-handed to right-handed. The magazines are plastic, you can see, but they do have steel lining on the inside, and they work well. Now let me reach over here. I have fooled around with a couple of other aftermarket magazines. This is ETS brand, which is cool because they're see-through. Them. This is Magpul brand. They're fine. But honestly, I bought like 3 of each of these, and they work. The Magpul ones seem a little harder to load. But, Glock magazines are relatively inexpensive. You can get them for like $25 each, and they work well. Unfortunately, I've pointed out before, these are 10-round magazines because I live, unfortunately, in New Jersey, and we have reduced capacity magazines. Standard capacity for the Glock 19 is 15 rounds. Let's look at the grip. The grip is actually pretty good. Again, I'm coming from the Generation 3 Glock 19, and the texturing is vastly improved. The Generation 3 Glocks were always so slick, always needed some kind of traction added to it. This is actually pretty good, and it really doesn't need anything added to it. They've gotten rid of the finger grooves, which I didn't think I would care about, but now that they're gone, I like that they're gone. Starting with the Generation 4, you have the backstrap system, which I thought was kind of hokey, because you basically hook it around here, it goes up here, and you pin it in front. Literally, is that literally tacked on? However, it kind of works. It was a little small for me. I put the medium backstrap on. I like it. The magazine release is bigger compared to the Generation 3, starting with the Generation 4, and it is now reversible. Very good. These are all good improvements that Glock has made on these guns. Slide release is now on both sides. That's I think a Generation 5 feature, either the left or the right. That's a nice addition. Doesn't add much thickness to the gun. Like it. The sights are still the same old Glock sights, which I don't mind. But I'll point out something in a minute. I don't mind the Glock sights. I've always kind of liked them. And even the back plate here seems to be the same. Decent serrations. And of course, specific to the MOS version, you have these removable plate here. This is just kind of a cover. You remove this. You install whatever kind of plate you need to mount your optic, and then mount your optic on top of that. But unfortunately, like I said before, I'm really not an expert on that. I apologize. This is a good look at the left side. I'm sorry, I guess that's the right side. Nice big ejection port. Trigger guard. Trigger. My one complaint about this gun, I will say, is that the trigger, this is the trigger safety, which is basically a drop safety. The trigger safety doesn't go flush with the rest of the trigger when you're pressing on it. It sticks out just a little bit. It's better than Generation 3 Glock 19s that had that really weird serrated trigger. I much prefer this more flat-facing trigger. However, I really wish this trigger safety was flush with the rest of the trigger when it was, I guess, disengaged. It sticks out a little bit, and after a while, it kind of rubs against your finger. Now, I took this to my class. I didn't clean it, so I put 400 rounds through here, and you can almost hear is like dirt in there. The trigger is a little bit better than it. The trigger is a little worse than what it normally is. I think the Generation 5 triggers are improved. People have said that. I think that's true. You have the front serrations. And what I was getting at before is I was never down on the Glock sights. Like, oh, they're plastic, they're cheap. This did not get abused all that much. And yet, this plastic sight is starting to get beat up a little bit. is basically dropped one time, intentionally by my instructor. You know, instructors are like, oh, this is a tool. And he asked me before he did it, and let him did it. He dropped it on the ground. And what do you know? A little bit of a indentation, a little bit of a mark there. The Glock universal accessory rail, and the gun comes with a 4-inch barrel. So that's the features of the Glock Model 19 Gen 5 MOS. So how did it shoot? I actually like this gun. I think it shoots very well. I think it shoots as well as a full-size gun. That the recoil impulse really isn't all that bad, and he actually is pretty good. I'm going to grab a target very quickly. This is something I shot today. And this is very unscientific, but this is me casual standing, casual fire, 10 yards, 40 rounds. So the accuracy is decent, or at least I can shoot decently. I've had not quite probably about 1,000 rounds to this gun. Never had any malfunctions, never had any major stoppages. 100% reliable, about 1,000 rounds. I wasn't keeping track, and since I just put 400 rounds to it, I'm going to say I'm pretty safely sure I'm at that 1,000 round mark. So the gun's accurate, reliable, durable. Don't have any major problems with it, besides the fact this trigger is not flush. This trigger safety is not flush with the rest of the trigger. Now, I'm going to say this is like the best stock Glock you can get. I'm going to qualify that in a few ways. So first of all, this grip angle is a little bit sharp. It could be a little more straight. But people who shoot Glocks tend to get used to it, and they kind of get used to having their wrist turn slightly forward more, slightly downward more. Because generally, if you're going to hold it straight, it'd be like that. So people who shoot Glocks a lot know to turn their wrist down a little bit, and you can kind of get used to it. Now, could Glock straighten that out? Of course they could. There are people who've developed Glock-compatible frames that are more straight. But if Glock did that, that is an acknowledgement of the fact that this wasn't ideal to begin with. And they're like, oh, it was a stupid idea. Sorry. They're not going to change the sights either. Because, I'm honest, probably at the time, changing your sights out wasn't a big deal when they invented this gun back in the 80s. But you have this dovetail rear sight, and you have this kind of pinned on front sight. Now, could they just make it dovetails on both sides? Yeah, of course they could. But they're not going to do that, because all the companies that make aftermarket accessories, now they're going to make a new style of front sight, so they're not going to do it. This trigger guard is just a little bit small, not too bad, a little small. Could be bigger? Of course it could be bigger. But if they made the trigger guard bigger, that might screw up all the companies that make holsters for Glocks. And sometimes you have like Serpa holsters that will lock in right here. So if you change this dimension, now all the holsters have to be changed, or at least a new version would have to be created. This is Glock's own proprietary universal rail. So they're not going to put like a 3-position Picatinny rail right here. Although a 3-position Glock rail might not be a bad idea. So little things like that. Glock's never going to change the grip angle. They're never going to change the trigger guard. They're never going to change the accessory rail. They're never going to change the sights. Because that may or may not be an objective improvement to the gun. But Glock's never going to do that. So while I've gone on my little rant there about how Glock's never going to change certain things, I think this is overall an excellent gun. I have no qualms about it. It passed through my course with flying colors, notwithstanding that little ding there. Accurate, reliable, durable. I think this needs a little bit of trigger upgrade, to be honest. I think something with maybe slightly better trigger and something where the trigger safety is flush with the rest of the gun. Besides all that, as a do-all gun, as a one gun to do everything, a home defense gun, concealed carry gun, range gun, the Glock 19 Gen 5 MOS is an excellent choice. And with that MOS system there, you can throw a red dot on there, which I might do eventually. And it makes an excellent choice. And if you want to opt for the Glock 17, which is just slightly bigger in the grip, maybe a quarter of an inch bigger in the grip, or a quarter of a half an inch longer in the grip, and a quarter of a half an inch longer in the slide. That's fine. It's pretty much interchangeable if you choose a Glock 19 or Glock 17. And with all that being said, I think I've said everything I can about this gun. Definitely, like I said, can recommend it. Nothing wrong with it. It has little quirks to it that I think just gonna stay with it from now on. Trying to prop that up nice so it looks good as we're going out. Perfect. This has been Steven with the Even Steven channel, giving you my recommendation of the Glock Model 19 Gen 5 MOS. I'm not the only one saying that. Plenty of people have said that. I'm just repeating what a lot of other people have said. Thank you, and goodbye.